But this kind of interplay not only happens in business, but also in other fields. Take Bretton Woods institution in page 29, for example. But first, let me explain what Bretton Woods system did. It was an international monetary system that negotiated currency exchange, keep balance of international payments, and made rules when international reserve assets had problems after World War II. It also built IMF, International Monetary Foundation, and World Bank, which both lend loans to countries which both lend loans to countries that need it. But the difference is that IMF mostly lend money to developed countries in order to remain the stability, and World Bank lend money to developing countries in order to help them to develop. Also, IMF inherit the original functions of Bretton Woods. They are still dealing with the monetary system. Before World War II, in order to protect one country's benefits and solve international problems, every nation started to depreciate its own currency, which made economy at that time a disaster. Everything seemed to become better after the Bretton Woods system showed up. But ever since 2012, countries' mistrust toward the system of IMF and World Bank intensified, which is now challenging us.
Okay, so because of the reason that we just mentioned, some alternative structures shows up, and please take a look at page 29, the last paragraph, and you can see the alternative structures like BRIC Bank and Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. They are both regional multilateralism, and they are both composed by several countries together and lent up to the world, lent up globally, and they all hold one another's steps so that they could use economic pressure to change one country's political policies, and this is how they restrain one another. And as we can see that the global multilateralism in here already have gaps. So it would be not bad if we can fill the gaps with the regional multilateralism, and that's the reason why TPP and RCEP and TTIP are strongly promoting now. So some people think that TPP and TTIP are a little bit different from RCEP because the purpose of organizing RCEP is to rebuild the confidence of Asia and to make the situation in Asia stable. But as for TPP and TTIP, in order to remake the rules of the global economy and the issues like environmental issues or migrant issues, they strongly bring developing countries into the agreement, which indirectly indicates the global multilateral system like World Bank, IMF is no longer working right now. And however, the countries that are negotiating with the agreement start to wonder the benefits that the agreement could bring. So they still remain the attitude toward the agreement.
So what should we do now? The urgent priority now is to build the confidence between countries, not believing in one another countries is the factor that result in all the problems we mentioned. We should cooperate and consider the global benefits instead of one nation's own benefits. And that's what World Economic Forum in Box 2.2 does. Scholars get together to discuss the major trend and release a report of the upcoming issues to let governors see what they can do to prevent bad results.
And now we are going to talk about the city limit, the risk of rapid and unplanned urbanization in developing countries. The main reason driving the rapid urbanization in emerging economies is that the prospect of greater employment opportunities and the hope for better conditions in cities. This rapid rise will mainly take place in developing countries, especially in Asia and Africa. If they can manage it well, it enables economies of scale and network effect and reduce the need for transportation and thereby making the economic activities more environmental friendly. However, if they lose control and make urbanization rapid and poor planned, it will cause negative effects. The example of 1994 in Indian city Surat has suggested that the rapid and unplanned urbanization create a large scale informal settlements, which lead to the unsanitary conditions and facilitate the spread of disease. In the following session, we are going to talk about the 4 difficult challenges for urbanization: infrastructure, health, climate, and social instability. The infrastructure challenge. Indeed, the availability and quality of infrastructure are the core problem for urbanizing cities in developing countries. Let's say it's like that infrastructure will not be able to keep pace with their growth populations. For instance, the program for infrastructure development in Africa is estimated that Africa will need to invest up to 19 billion annually until 2020 for both capital investment and maintenance. However, currently only 4 45 billion is finance, which leaves an infrastructure gap of 48 billion per year to be financed. And life, we are going to talk about the life in cities. How smart is smart? Cities, we are increasingly reliant on the information technology-based system, and they also create unexpected new risks, bugs, and weaknesses. For instance, in 2006, San Francisco Bay Area Rapid Transit Network was laid low for days when initial effort to fix a bug inadvertently triggered a large and longer outage. And also, the Japanese tsunami in 2011 and Superstorm Sandy in 2012 caused damage to cellular network that took weeks to repair. The most dangerous failure for the cellular network is due to congestion, because during crisis, panic dealing frequently overwhelm the careful managed wireless spectrum.
And now we are going to talk about cities and health. We're on page 33, cities and health. And concern of health problem in cities, we can discuss in two parts. The first is infectious disease, and the second, the non-communicative disease. So first, let's talk about the infectious disease. So how does urbanization cause infectious disease? That's because urbanization drives people to go to city for a better life. However, if there are a huge number of people crowded in a small city, that would cause an overpopulation. If urbanization is too rapid and not well planned, especially in developing countries, it will be very difficult for countries to tackle with their economic risks. And also with the overpopulation, it's hard for those cities to settle with such huge population, which could lead to a lack of infrastructure. And also, an overpopulation phenomenon in rapid urbanization is more likely to cause increasing population living in poverty and also in slums, which could easily cause more infectious disease happen. That means that poor living condition, for example, like a lack of water and housing, can easily spread the infectious disease out. So, to sum up, the combination of high population density, poverty, lack of infrastructure, especially water and waste management, can cause infectious disease. And the second problem of urbanization is non-communicative diseases, which also called NCDs in short terms. The factors of non-communicative disease include unhealthy diets, consumption of alcohol and tobacco, and also pollutions. And such non-communicative diseases include diabetes and kinds of cancers. According to estimates, there are more than 38 million people who die from non-communicative disease over the world every year. So it is obvious that non-communicative disease is a leading disease over the world. So let's talk about the connection between diabetes and urbanizations. Although that the relationship between diabetes and urbanizations hasn't been formally established, but according to data, experts predict that people with diabetes living in city will eventually double from 181 million people today to 347 million in 2035. So when people who get diabetes increase in city areas, that would easily cause pressure on vulnerable healthcare systems, which could eventually cause dramatic financial losses to those countries. So next, the third challenge of urbanization is cities and climate change. Now we are on page 33, column 2. Climate change, the risks of climate change often happen in developing countries. According to estimates, migration from rural to urban area has increasing because they are driven by extreme weather change. For example, people living area which suffers from land degradation and desertification can hardly make them a living there. And also, cities which are poorly planned and poorly urbanized can face more effects of climate change. That is because that most cities are located nearby the sea. With the extreme weather activities, the cases of floods may increase, and the cities nearby the sea may suffer from floods. And also, urbanizations has already concentrated people, infrastructure, economy activities in cities, which may easily resist natural disasters because of the air pollution which caused by the gas emissions from city activities. According to the data, developing countries have already taken up about 3/3 of annual greenhouse gas emissions, which are mostly caused by their economic growth and rapid urbanization. But why do we single out developing countries for the global for the extreme weather activities? That is because that basically sustainable and low carbon infrastructure always needs governance, technical, financial, and also institutional capacities. However, those are usually lack in developing countries, so they can hardly deal with the environmental problems. So therefore, in order to strike a balance between urbanization and the eco-friendly infrastructure, local governments need to deal with both urban mitigation and the adaptation to climate change. And the last challenge we are talking about is the instability of society. Many people, in order to pursue a better living, many people crowd into cities for a better living quality and more job opportunities. However, the high cost of living and the competition for livelihood in city usually makes people live in poverty and slums area. Therefore, we are going to talk about how rapid and unplanned urbanization could link to urban violence and social unrest. First, in rapid urbanization area, many people are attracted to cities to find job opportunity. However, when a huge group of people crowd into a city seeking for job opportunities, there may be a large number of unemployed people, and once the unemployment rate has risen in one area, that may easily cause social unrest. And second, the inequalities in city are more easily to be observed. For example, the equality of opportunity and economy. And most wealthy areas are usually neighboring the quick expanding slums. So that will make the inequality condition more obvious. And third, because of the overpopulation and the lack of resources in a small city, people may compete strongly for resources, which could easily cause social instability in this situation. And fourth, if the city governance cannot deal with those social problems well, and the governance is very weak and inefficient, it may strengthen the above risk and can't deal with any risk. And the other problem is that there are not enough housing in cities because of the overpopulation. And once the supply is not enough to meet the demand, the price of housing may be easily rising. In that case, a high housing price may not reflect what the real situation is. So, to wrap up, their urbanization can cause not only opportunities for people, but also risk to the whole globe. Let's look on the page 35, column 1, first column and paragraph 2. It says that it is the rapid and unplanned nature of urbanization rather than urbanization itself. So, the biggest problem is that urbanization, if urbanization is rapid and unplanned, it could lead to several challenges. And in the future, whether the urbanization can help or can make the global more vulnerable to face the global issues. The city's institution and the national institution would determine a lot.
And now let's focus on the engineering the future. How can the risks and rewards of emerging technologies be balanced? Emerging technologies are expected to revolutionize a wide range of traditional relationships in some industries, and the impacts can range from economic to societal, cultural, environmental, and geopolitical. There are three examples provided in the textbook, which will be discussed later, and including synthetic biology, gene drives, and artificial intelligence. And emerging technology is a very broad and loose term. It's very difficult to categorize it because there are many new advances are interdisciplinary. But there are still three broad categories that can be distinguished. The first one is those relates to information, the internet, and data transfer. Examples of this is big data, artificial intelligence, and the Internet of Things. And the second is biological technologies. Examples are the genetic engineering of drought-resistant crops and biofuel, lab-grown meat, and the therapeutic techniques based on RNA, genomics, and microbiomes. And third is chemical technologies, which includes those involved in making stronger materials and better batteries, recycling nuclear waste, and mining metals from the byproducts of water desalination plants. And those examples are provided in page 36, box 2.5. And experiments in labs are proceeding very quickly. And once technologies show their usefulness to the public, they will attract a lot of investments to work on the balance of the risks and also the rewards. And however, the development is highly uncertain, and their potential second or third order effects cannot easily be predicted, so it's difficult to take designing precaution. Risks of bad impacts can be categorized into two, the foreseen and unforeseen. The foreseen example is in page 36, line 4, in the middle column, causes of concern. It says that some examples of foreseen risks are leakage of dangerous substance through difficulties of containment, or storage errors, the theft of illegal sale of emerging technologies, computer viruses, hacker attacks on human transplants, or chemical or biological welfare. And both unseen or unforeseen risks will endanger the future of the human life once they are used in wrong ways. So let's see the first example of emerging technology, which is synthetic biology. It refers to the creation of new living organisms from DNA. With the discovery of DNA, DNA hybridization in the early 1970s, it became possible to genetically modify existing organisms. The current developing application brought not only enormous potential benefits but also risks. For example, yeast has been used to make morphine. So in this case, it's not hard for us to imagine that synthetic biology will be used in bad ways, for example, making illicit drugs. And also, synthetic biology can be small tech, which means it doesn't require large and expensive facilities. With low costs, it's possibly that someone might one day be able to devise a weapon of mass destruction. And in order to keep things under control, the synthetic biology community has been pursuing self-regulation in various ways, such as developing voluntary codes of practice. However, some civil society groups think that only self-regulation is not enough, and so they demand for more strong oversight mechanisms to keep things under control. And the next example of emerging technology is gene drives. A gene drives method drives a gene through a population, stimulating a gene to be preferentially inherited. And it can spread through a given population, whose characteristics can be modified by the addition, deletion, editing, or even suppression. Gene drives present an unprecedented chance to cure some risks of health and the environment. For instance, to kill invasive species that threaten the biodiversity of ecosystems through reprogramming of mosquito genomes. However, gene drives also carry unintentional damage to wild organisms, crops, livestock, and other connected ecosystems. And there's no clear regulation to deal with gene drives now. So governance standards of regulatory regions should need to be provided in order to catch up with the fast-growing development of science.
Well, hello, I'm Vincent, and now I'm talking about the third emerging technology. Well, I think we all heard about artificial intelligence, or we can also say AI. Well, AI scientists build a system that can serve researching tasks, learn from data, make decisions and plans, and playing games. Well, AI captured the public imaginations for decades. Well, the recent advances that put AIs into popular awareness and use is for example, like IBM Watson and Siri, Google Auto Translation, and Google self-driving car. Well, it is very easy to make a computer play well at intelligent tasks and checkers. Well, when it comes to perception and mobility, it is very difficult, or impossible. However, it is difficult as the recent survey showed that AI scientists still expect the human-level AI be produced in the later half of this century. If they do it, this advance will tremendously transform nearly every sector of human activities. If the technology transition is handled well, it is good for our human. But if not, it will cause catastrophic. If the smarter than human AIs are built but its goal is different from inventors, how can we show that it will take the all available resources to reach its goal? Well, in the near term, we should first deal with the numerous societal challenges. The first one is that AI is anticipated to take the most positions of labor. If in Taiwan, for example, our highway traffic wardens are all replaced by machine and they cannot find a new job. And the next one is that auto vehicles should be controlled by law. Well, auto vehicle will face the situation that they have to weigh the risk of injuries to passengers against the risk to the pedestrians. And the next one is that several countries are now developing the auto weapon systems that can assess information, choose targets, and open fire without human interventions. Well, this gives the new challenges for international law because who will take the responsibility if the auto weapons violate international laws? Should we blame the system or the system makers? In many fields show that AI programs have the risk that it can make several significant decisions before humans notice and react. For example, May 2012 tragic event that nearly background net capitals. And now I'm talking about the thoughts for the future, and you can see it in page 41. Well, emerging technologies is developing rapidly, and it has high impact on all fields, and we should be very careful about it. Well, the regulators face the demand to design a system, the regulatory system that is predictable enough for companies, investors, and scientists to make the rational decisions, but clear enough to avoid government's gap that could jeopardize public consensus or give too much room for non-state actors. Well, in the light of complexities and rapidly changing nature of new technologies, the government's system should be designed in a way that is good to all stakeholders. For regulators, talk with researchers is the only way to understand the potential future implications of new technologies. For scientific community, having a safe space is needed to have an open discussion around both benefits and risk. At the same time, the risks tend to across the board, so the whole world should work together to discuss how to respond. And in the end, it is the whole conclusion. Well, the analysis of interplay between geopolitical and economies may show us that we need to find ways to minimize incentives for national governments to engage in negative tactics. And the next is there's no doubt that urbanization will continue, and so the governments of cities will be the resident of global risk. And emerging technologies, it promises to be play the leading role in improving smart city, but it also presents risk. So how to respond is very important. And this is our global risk report. Thank you for listening.